The massive view screen in Ambassador James Walker's office came to life without warning. Its sudden activation made him look up from the stack of diplomatic reports on his desk. The Empire's crimson insignia flashed across the screen, a sight that always made his stomach turn slightly. Walker had served as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Empire for 15 years, long enough to know that unscheduled broadcasts rarely brought good news. He set down his coffee cup and straightened his gray diplomatic uniform, a habit born from years of formal meetings. This is an Imperial Command broadcast. Viewing is mandatory for all systems under Imperial jurisdiction, announced a mechanical voice. The room's lighting automatically dimmed, and the broadcast began to fill the entire wall. The scene opened on a vast plaza on Centauri Prime. 50,000 beings knelt in rows that stretched as far as the eye could see. Walker's breath caught in his throat as he recognized the setup. This wasn't a celebration or an announcement. It was an execution ground. Today, the Empire delivers justice to those who dare threaten our peace and stability, declared Grand Executor Marcus, his holographic image towering above the plaza. His white uniform gleamed in the planet's twin suns, medals and decorations catching the light. These seditious elements have been found guilty of spreading disorder and rebellion. Walker's hands gripped the edge of his desk. Among the kneeling figures, he could make out the distinctive blue medical uniforms of Earth's Interstellar Aid Corps. His mind raced. There had been 300 human medical workers stationed in the Centauri system, providing care to communities suffering from a recent plague outbreak. The Empire hadn't even bothered to separate them from the other prisoners. Let this serve as a lesson to all who would challenge imperial order, Marcus continued, his voice echoing across the plaza. Behind him, rows of Imperial guards raised their pulse rifles. "No," Walker whispered, but he couldn't look away. Protocol required him to witness this. Every diplomat in the galaxy would be watching, and humanity's response would need to be measured and precise. The execution was silent, clinical, and horrifically efficient. Waves of energy pulses swept across the plaza. Row after row of beings simply slumped forward. No screams, no chaos, just the quiet extinguishing of 50,000 lives. In less than 2 minutes, Walker's computer terminal began blinking immediately. Messages flooded in from Earth's government, from other human colonies, from alien allies. His hand shook as he reached for his communication panel, but years of diplomatic training took over. "Get me the Security Council," he ordered, his voice steadier than he felt, "and download a complete copy of this broadcast. Every frame, every angle, every transmission metadata. We'll need it all." As he waited for the connection, Walker's mind was already racing through the implications. The Empire had just murdered 300 human aid workers without trial, without presentation of evidence, without even the courtesy of notifying Earth's government. But they had done something even more dangerous. They had given humanity a reason to act. His terminal chimed as the Security Council connection went through. 12 faces appeared on his screen, the leaders of Earth's government looking as shocked and angry as he felt. "Ladies and gentlemen," Walker said, his voice now cold and clear, "the Empire has just made the biggest mistake in its 300-year history. They thought this broadcast would show their strength. Instead, they've shown us something far more important." He paused, letting his next words carry their full weight. "They've shown us that they're afraid." The council members leaned forward, and Walker could see the same determination in their eyes that he felt in his heart. The Empire had wanted to send a message with this broadcast. They had succeeded, but not in the way they intended. Humanity had received the message loud and clear. The time for measured diplomacy was over. Now it was time for justice. The United Earth government's emergency session began exactly 6 hours after the broadcast. The Great Chamber, normally a place of measured debate and careful discussion, crackled with barely contained fury. 500 representatives from Earth and its colonies filled the ancient hall in Geneva, their faces grim under the warm lighting. Walker stood at the speaker's podium, his diplomatic uniform still perfectly pressed despite the sleepless night. The holoprojector behind him displayed images from the broadcast, frozen on the faces of human medical workers moments before their execution. "These were our people," Walker said, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. Dr. Anna Miller, who developed vaccines for 3 different alien species, medical technician Robert Thompson, who worked 60 straight days during the Centauri plague outbreak, head nurse Lisa Martinez, who delivered babies from 6 different species. He touched a control, and the images changed. The Empire called them seditious elements. Their crime: they treated everyone who came to their clinics, including those the Empire labeled as dissidents. A low murmur filled the chamber. Walker continued, clicking through more images. "The Empire didn't just kill our people. They violated their own laws to do it. No trials. No evidence presented. No right to defense. They broke 47 different clauses of the Galactic Charter of Rights, a charter they themselves wrote." Director Reynolds of Earth Intelligence stepped forward next, his plain black suit a stark contrast to the formal attire around him. "We've confirmed that this was not a random action. The Empire specifically targeted systems and populations they believe might resist their authority. They wanted to make an example." The chamber erupted in angry shouts. Walker raised his hand for silence, and the room gradually quieted. Years of being Earth's voice in the galaxy had taught him the power of calm words in angry moments. "The Empire expects us to protest quietly and then accept their empty apologies," he said. "They think we'll be satisfied with minor concessions and worthless promises. They believe humans are predictable, that we'll choose trade over justice." A thin smile crossed his face. "They're wrong." Admiral Lane stepped up next, her fleet uniform decorated with the stars of 20 years' service. "The Empire controls most of the known hyperspace routes," she said, activating a new hologram showing trade lines between systems. "They think this gives them power over us." She pressed a button, and new lines appeared in blue. "These are the routes we've mapped and kept secret over the last decade. Routes they don't know exist." The representatives leaned forward, studying the complex web of blue lines that connected human worlds to dozens of other civilizations. Walker nodded to Admiral Lane and took over again. "For 15 years, I've preached patience and cooperation with the Empire," he said. "I believed we could change them from within their system. I was wrong. The Empire only understands power." He paused, looking around the chamber. "But not all power comes from weapons. They've shown us their kind of power, the power to kill helpless people. Now we'll show them ours. The power to build alliances, to control resources they need, to create paths they don't know about." The chamber was completely silent now. Walker's voice grew stronger. "The Empire thought this broadcast would silence dissent. Instead, it will become evidence in their trial. They thought it would show their strength. It will prove their crimes. They thought it would teach everyone to fear them." He smiled again, but this time there was steel in it. "Instead, it will teach them to fear us." The representatives rose as one, their approval echoing off the ancient walls. The motion passed unanimously. Earth would demand justice, not just for their own dead, but for all 50,000 victims. The Empire had wanted to send a message to the galaxy. Now humanity would send one back. The Imperial High Council's chamber stretched 100 meters into the air, its black marble walls designed to make visitors feel small and insignificant. Holographic displays of conquered worlds floated near the ceiling, a constant reminder of the Empire's vast power. But Ambassador Walker felt nothing but cold determination as he walked down the long central aisle. Grand Executor Marcus sat on the elevated central throne, surrounded by 12 Imperial Council members in their white uniforms. Their faces showed only boredom, as if the execution of 50,000 beings was too minor a matter for their full attention. "The human ambassador requests an audience," announced the chamber's eye in its emotionless voice. "Subject: the recent criminal justice action in the Centauri system." Marcus waved a hand lazily. "Proceed, Ambassador. Though I must remind you that internal Imperial security matters are not open for discussion." Walker stopped at the designated spot, 30 meters from the council platform. He took out a small device and placed it on the floor. Before the guards could react, it projected a massive hologram showing the execution broadcast. "I'm not here to discuss," Walker said, his voice firm. "I'm here to inform you of consequences." The council members stirred, not used to such direct language from a lesser species. Marcus leaned forward slightly. "Consequences. Choose your next words carefully, Ambassador." Walker pressed a button. The hologram changed to show trade routes across the galaxy. Humanity controls 30% of the galaxy's rare element production. Starting today, that supply is closed to the Empire. One of the council members laughed. "You'll destroy your own economy." "No," Walker replied. "We've spent years preparing for this. Your intelligence services were so busy watching our ships that they missed our real preparations." He changed the hologram again, showing the 47 violations of the Galactic Charter. Each of these broken laws carries a specific penalty under Imperial law. We demand all of them be enforced. Marcus stood up, his face darkening. "You dare quote our laws to us? The Empire has stood for 300 years. We define the law." "Not anymore." Walker's voice remained calm. "The broadcast wasn't just sent to official channels. Our tech teams broke your encryption. Every being in the galaxy can now see the unedited version, including the parts you try to hide." The council chamber grew very quiet. Walker continued, "They can see how you selected your victims, how you deliberately included aid workers to punish systems that accepted help from outside the Empire, how you broke your own laws." "These are internal Imperial matters," Marcus growled. "If you continue this defiance, we will cut off all trade routes to Earth's colonies. Your worlds will starve." Walker smiled for the first time. "No, we won't. Director Reynolds sends his regards, by the way. He wanted you to know that those trade route maps you're so proud of, they're about 300 years out of date." The council members began whispering among themselves. Walker could see the first traces of worry on their faces. They were finally realizing that humanity wasn't just angry. They were prepared. "You have 24 hours to begin compliance with our demands," Walker said. "After that, the rare element supply stops completely. And that's just the start." He turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and one more thing. Check your personal accounts. You'll find they've been frozen across every banking system in the galaxy. A little gift from Earth's cyber teams." As Walker walked out of the chamber, he heard the council burst into angry argument. The Empire had thought humans were simple creatures who could be bullied and controlled. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. The diplomatic dance was over. Now the real pressure would begin. 3 days after Walker's confrontation with the Imperial Council, the Empire launched what they thought would be a crushing response. Their massive warships appeared over Earth's largest colony worlds, ready to enforce a complete trade blockade. But the Empire's show of force met an unexpected sight: empty spaceports and silent trading docks. In his temporary command center on Luna Base, Walker watched the Imperial fleet's movements on a massive tactical display. Admiral Lane stood beside him, a slight smile on her face as she tracked the confused movements of the Imperial ships. "They're searching for our supply ships," Lane said, pointing to the erratic patrol patterns. "They still haven't figured it out." She pressed a button, and new routes appeared on the display. Hundreds of them, spreading out like a spider's web through supposedly empty space. Walker nodded. "How long did it take us to map these routes?" 10 years, Lane replied. "While they were watching our official shipping lanes, we had smaller ships plotting new hyperspace paths through unmapped sectors. The Empire thinks they know every safe route in the galaxy. Their arrogance made them stop looking for new ones." The command center's door slid open, and Director Reynolds walked in, holding a data tablet. "The latest reports from our embedded agents," he said. "The Imperial Council is in chaos. 3 members have already tried to access their frozen accounts. When they couldn't, they started making calls to their secret backup accounts." Which we also froze, Walker added. Exactly. Reynolds smiled. They never imagined we could reach their personal wealth. They thought their banking systems were unbreakable. They didn't realize we've had people inside their financial networks for years. A young officer rushed up to Admiral Lane, whispering something in her ear. She straightened, her smile growing wider. The first Imperial supply shipment just tried to use their emergency stockpile of rare elements. They found the containers empty. Walker raised an eyebrow. Our people replaced the contents months ago, Reynolds confirmed. Pure dirt, packed to exactly the same weight. Their own security systems showed everything was normal, because we never broke the seals. We just went around them. The tactical display suddenly lit up with new alerts. Imperial ships were breaking off their blockade positions, responding to urgent recalls. Without the rare elements they needed, their advanced weapons were starting to fail. The mighty Imperial fleet was being undermined not by battles, but by careful planning and patience. Message coming in from Grand Executor Marcus, announced the communication officer. Walker straightened his uniform. Main screen. Marcus's face appeared, his usual arrogance replaced by poorly hidden concern. Ambassador Walker, perhaps we can discuss a compromise regarding your demands. The time for compromise was before you murdered 50,000 innocent beings, Walker replied calmly. Now you'll face justice under your own laws. Every clause you broke, every rule you ignored, we'll enforce them all. You don't understand what you're doing, Marcus snarled. The Empire maintains order. Without us, the galaxy will fall into chaos. Walker leaned forward. No, you don't understand. We've spent 15 years learning your systems, finding your weaknesses, and preparing for this moment. You thought humans were simple creatures you could bully into submission. Instead, we were mapping your blind spots, tracking your crimes, and building a network that could bring you down without firing a single shot. He stood up straighter. Look around you, Grand Executor. Your fleet is failing. Your economy is freezing. Your council is panicking. And this is just the beginning. The transmission cut off abruptly. Walker turned to his team. Send the signal to our allies. Phase 2 begins now. Across the galaxy, carefully placed agents began their work. The Empire's greatest mistake hadn't been the executions. It had been underestimating humanity's capacity for patient, methodical resistance. The lunar conference room was never meant to hold this many species. Originally designed for Earth's diplomatic corps, it now hosted representatives from 12 different civilizations. Walker stood at the head of the long table, looking at faces that would have been impossible to gather in one room just weeks ago. The blue-skinned trade master of the mercantile worlds tapped his fingers on the table. The Empire has controlled our commerce for 2 centuries. They take 40% of our profits as protection fees. They banned our research into clean energy, added the chief scientist of the Rigel systems, her crystalline form catching the light, said it would destabilize their power monopoly. One by one, they shared their grievances. The Empire had hurt them all, but fear had kept them isolated. Now, watching the humans stand up to Imperial power, they found their courage. Our intelligence suggests the Empire is weaker than they appear, Director Reynolds said, sharing data on the main screen. They maintain power through fear and the illusion of total control. But their reaction to our actions proves how fragile that control really is. Admiral Lane stepped forward. We've mapped safe routes connecting all your systems, she said, displaying the secret hyperspace network. Routes the Empire doesn't know about. With these, we can create a new trading alliance that bypasses their control completely. The representatives studied the map with growing interest. The military commander of the Proxima colonies, a tall figure in ceremonial armor, spoke next. The Empire's ships guard the known routes. But if these new paths are real, they're real, Walker confirmed. We've spent years verifying each one. Together, they form a network that connects every major system in the galaxy, a network the Empire can't monitor or control. The Trademaster leaned forward. How do we know we can trust Earth? You might simply want to replace the Empire with your own control. Walker smiled and pressed a button. The room's holographic system activated, displaying the execution broadcast. The Empire killed 50,000 people to send a message of fear. They wanted everyone to believe resistance was hopeless. He paused the image. But look closer. Among the executed were humans who came to help others. We don't want to rule you. We just want a galaxy where helping others isn't punishable by death. The room fell silent as they watched the footage. Walker continued, every species here has suffered under the Empire. They keep us divided because they know that together, we're stronger than they are. They don't need ships or weapons to maintain control. They just need us to believe we're alone. The chief scientist's crystalline form pulsed with emotion. What exactly are you proposing? A coalition, Walker replied. Not ruled by Earth or any single power, a true alliance of equals. We have the routes. You have resources and knowledge. Together, we can create something the Empire fears more than any rebellion, an alternative to their power. The military commander stood. The Empire will try to stop this. They'll respond with force when they realize what's happening. Let them try, Admiral Lane said firmly. Their ships are already failing without our rare elements. Their economy is freezing as we speak. And now, she smiled, they'll face not just humanity, but all of us together. One by one, the representatives signaled their agreement. Within hours, the coalition charter was drafted and signed. As Walker looked around the room, he saw something that had been missing from the galaxy for centuries: hope. The Empire's brutal broadcast had been meant to crush resistance. Instead, it had united their victims into the first real challenge to imperial power in 300 years. And this was just the beginning. The peace conference was held on Station Neutral, a massive space station in unclaimed territory between Imperial and Coalition space. Walker knew it was a trap. The Empire would never agree to real negotiations, but that was exactly why he had to attend. The tracking devices are in place, Director Reynolds said, adjusting Walker's formal suit collar. We'll know your location within the station at all times. They stood in a private chamber, preparing for the meeting. Are you sure about this? The Empire's getting desperate. Desperate people make dangerous choices. Walker nodded. That's counting on it. The Empire still thinks they can solve this with one bold move. Let them try. The conference chamber was a perfect circle, with the Imperial delegation on one side and the Coalition representatives on the other. Grand Executor Marcus stood at the head of the Imperial group, his white uniform now showing signs of wear. The Empire's supply problems were starting to show. The Empire is willing to discuss certain concessions, Marcus began, his voice trained. In return for resuming rare element shipments, we might consider reducing our presence in some systems. Walker stayed silent, watching the Imperial Guard slowly shifting positions around the room. Through his hidden earpiece, he could hear Reynolds providing updates. 3 Imperial assassins moving into position, all marked and tracked. Your silence is not helpful, Ambassador, Marcus said, irritation creeping into his voice. The Empire seeks a peaceful resolution, like the peace you gave to 50,000 innocent people. Walker finally spoke, or the peace you've maintained through fear for 300 years. Marcus's face darkened. You test our patience, human. Guards moving into strike positions, Reynolds whispered in Walker's ear. 30 seconds. Walker stood up slowly. No, Grand Executor. You've tested ours. Did you really think we wouldn't be ready for this? He pressed a small button on his sleeve. Throughout the chamber, Imperial guards suddenly froze in place, their weapons half-drawn. What is this? Marcus demanded, looking around in confusion. Your Imperial Guard has been compromised for years, Walker said calmly. Did you never wonder why we seem to know so much about your plans? Director Reynolds spent a decade placing our people in your most trusted units. The chamber's doors slid open, and coalition security teams entered, led by agents Walker had known for years. Agents who had been wearing Imperial uniforms until moments ago. "Lieutenant Ross," Walker nodded to a woman removing her Imperial helmet. "Or should I say, Earth Intelligence Senior Agent Ross. Thank you for your 15 years of service in the Imperial Guard." Marcus lunged forward, reaching for a hidden weapon, but found himself quickly restrained. Around the chamber, the same scene played out as genuine Imperial guards discovered they were suddenly outnumbered by revealed coalition agents. "This entire peace conference is being broadcast across the galaxy," Walker announced. "Every system can see how the Empire planned to assassinate diplomatic representatives during peace talks." He turned to Marcus. "Your own security cameras are transmitting it. Your own communication systems are spreading it. Your own people are watching it." The coalition representatives stood calmly, unsurprised by the events unfolding. They had known the plan. This was more than stopping an assassination. It was showing the galaxy that the Empire's power was an illusion. "You've lost, Marcus," Walker said quietly. "Not to weapons or armies, but to patience and preparation. While you were watching for battleships, you should have been watching your own ranks." As coalition forces led the Imperial delegation away, Walker received a message from Earth. More Imperial systems were declaring their independence, inspired by the broadcast of the Empire's failed assassination attempt. The Empire's greatest weapon had always been fear. Now that weapon was being turned against them. The Imperial Senate chamber had not seen a trial in 300 years. There had never been a need. The Empire's justice was swift and absolute. But now, 6 months after the failed assassination attempt, the massive room served a new purpose. The same space where the Empire had celebrated countless victories now hosted its own judgment. Walker sat in the witness box, facing the newly formed Galactic Court of Justice. Representatives from 50 species filled the chamber. Above them, massive screens showed the proceedings to trillions of beings across thousands of worlds. "Please state for the court," the Chief Justice began, "what happened after the Empire's execution broadcast." Walker spoke clearly, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. The Empire believed they were showing their strength. Instead, they revealed their greatest weakness, their dependence on fear. "We used that broadcast to prove they had violated their own laws 47 times in a single action." Grand Executor Marcus and the Imperial Council sat in the defendant's box, their white uniforms replaced by simple gray clothes. They watched as Walker displayed document after document, recording after recording, building an unshakable case against them. "The Empire's own records proved their crimes," Walker continued. "Records they thought were secure, but which our agents had been quietly copying for years. Their own security footage shows their violations. Their own financial logs reveal their corruption." The evidence was overwhelming. Messages between council members laughing about their crimes, records of bribes and threats, proof of countless violations of the very laws they had created to control others. "But their greatest crime," Walker said, displaying the execution broadcast one final time, "was believing they could murder 50,000 innocent beings and face no consequences. That the galaxy would watch this atrocity and remain silent out of fear." He turned to face the defendants directly. "You thought that broadcast would strengthen your power. Instead, it became Exhibit A in your trial. The very thing you used to spread fear became the proof of your crimes." The trial lasted 3 days. The Empire's own laws, twisted for centuries to oppress others, now served justice. The sentences were read out one by one, each punishment exactly matching what the Empire had prescribed in its legal codes. By the authority of the Galactic Court of Justice, the Chief Justice announced, using the Empire's own laws and standards of evidence, "This court finds the defendants guilty of all charges." Marcus stood up, his face red with rage. "You cannot judge us. We are the Empire. We are the law." "No," Walker replied calmly. "You created laws to control others, never thinking they would apply to you. That was your final mistake." The sentences were carried out immediately. not with executions. The coalition had rejected the Empire's brutal methods. Instead, the imperial leaders were sentenced to work in the same labor camps they had sent so many others to. They would live under the same harsh rules they had created for their victims. As Walker left the Senate chamber, he saw something new in the faces of the beings he passed. Not fear, but hope. The Empire's mighty fleets were being converted into cargo ships. Their fortresses were becoming schools and hospitals. Their treasuries were paying reparations to those they had wronged. Was it worth it? Director Reynolds asked, walking beside him. 15 years of planning, all those agents risking their lives. Walker stopped at a window, looking out at the capital world that had once been the Empire's crown jewel. Ships from 100 worlds moved freely through its skies, no longer afraid of Imperial patrols. "Look out there," he said softly. They'd wanted to teach everyone a lesson about power. And they did, just not the lesson they intended. The Empire's broadcast had meant to show their strength. Instead, it had revealed a simple truth. Real power doesn't come from fear or weapons, but from patience, justice, and the courage to stand together against tyranny. The galaxy would remember that lesson for a very long time.